Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Well, look who we have. Coach Don Patterson, myself, Corey Bratta here. We got to change the little name tag in the corner because it's Coach and Corey here live from Iowa City. Coach, good to see you. I know Hawkeye fans are excited to be able to hear from you. It's been too long. It always is in the offseason. It's way too long of an offseason. The news has not stopped, but these shows aren't as frequent. Good to see you.
It's good to be seen, Corey. It's been a while since we saw each other face to face, so it's great to catch up with you. And hope your spring is gone as well as mine is.
Well, today was a beautiful day for spring football.
I know.
That's what we're here to talk about. After yesterday, I kind of thought, I don't know what it was like down in here in Iowa City, but I know up in central Iowa, it was a little chilly and a little windy.
Yeah.
But today you had sun. The wind tapered off quite a bit, and it was plenty warm.
Yeah.
Great day for a spring game. We've had some bad ones. We've had some good ones. Today was a good one. And we're here, folks, for the next hour or so talking to you about spring football and just everything Iowa football. It's been a while since we've had Coach Patterson here with us, and it's been a while since we've done one of these live shows. You are welcome to interact with us via the live chat. I see about 35 comments already flowing in here. Folks, please hit that like button here to start. It does help us quite a bit. Sometimes we've got to kind of gain traction back when we haven't been in football mode, at least with viewership. So please help us to do that. Share the stream out in social media. Tell your friends, perhaps even send a text out to someone you know watches the show. I know you and I have both had some people here. I had somebody today come up to me and say, hey, you doing a show later? Yes, we are. And so I'm glad we were able to get together for this. And we also have the NFL draft to talk about. That completed today. A lot of intriguing storylines there. 5 Hawkeyes selected, 3 of which came in the final round, but 5 Hawkeyes nonetheless. So I'll be anxious to get your perspective. But I guess before we get into the nitty gritty, Don, and the details, because again, we're going to keep the show to about an hour here this evening. I want to ask you just about you reflecting back on your time as a head coach, as a coordinator. What's this like now? I know it's changed with the portal and with NIL, and just the period has changed. But Kirk talked about that during his press conference today, what it's like transitioning to a bit of a break. You have finals, you have your break, and then you have June conditioning. What's this period like for coaches?
Well, it's more chaotic now than it used to be, that's for sure. Matter of fact, as I understand it, Corey, one bit of news today relating to the state of college football, we did the honorable thing and the right thing. We told guys that might not make the 105, we told them up front, we can't promise anything for you. As a result, some of those guys have moved on. And now I understand from a judge, the judge said that might be kind of hasty to do that. So there's a chance that the cut to 105 will not take place this fall now.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because a lot of the guys were being punished because we were more honest than some other coaching staffs. Some other coaching staffs, I think, kept players intentionally in the dark because they're just more interested in their own selfish interests. Yeah. And it wasn't very fair to those players. And as it turns out, maybe we will not be restricted to 105 as we start up in the fall.
But it's a great topic because as soon as Mark talked to me about this on Tuesday with this ruling and this judge, I said the same exact thing. I said, well, this is not, once again, it's not fair. It's not an even playing field because you have, like Kirk brought up today, you're punishing the people that are doing this right. That have done this the equitable, ethical way. And we'll just see how all this plays out. But Iowa's had to basically cut. They're basically having to cut people. And they're doing it for the own good of those players because there just weren't spots available. Right. And we don't need to go through specifics, but they're playing. And Kirk even mentioned today at least 5 guys that he didn't name them, of course, but 5 guys that have stuck around this spring that don't have a spot on the roster.
Right.
So they're allowed to be here now, but Iowa has no intention of keeping them on scholarship or even on the roster because they simply don't have the spots. Now, maybe the 105 changes and they're able to keep them, but it's unfair to those other kids. Now, a lot of those kids have found homes, the G5 level FCS route, which is great. Hopefully they'll play. I think of a guy like Rusty Van Wetsinga. He ends up in the MAC. His younger brother just entered the portal here not that long ago. And we are going to talk about the portal as well. Before we do that, let's look at a quarterback just for a second, because I know that's priority number one, it seems like, from fans. They want to know about the new quarterback situation. Mark Gronowski was not in pads today. He's throwing, but he's not back up to full speed.
I actually did witness him throwing an actual football today.
Yeah. I didn't witness it. I saw it. I think he was throwing before the spring practice officially began at 10:45 a.m. Yeah. But, it was his shoulder. It was his throwing shoulder, right? The operation? Yeah. As far as I'm aware, it was the right shoulder.
Yeah, and as I understand it, even last fall, that injury did exist, and he simply played through it. Of course, playing through it included playoff games, and they finally lost to North Dakota State at North Dakota State. And, of course, the winner of those kind of matchups generally wins the national title. It happened again this year with North Dakota State. So I'm just glad to know that Mark's doing okay. I did talk to him today. I was glad to see him because, as I think I told you before, one of my old players actually worked with Mark as a junior high student in terms of athletic development, athletic training. He's one of the best known in Chicagoland to do it, a former player by the name of J.R. Nicholas, who played for me. And he called me up a while back and said, Mark's my all-time favorite student, a favorite athlete to work with, and you're my all-time favorite coach. So I'm excited about you guys having a chance to get to know each other. And I've had a couple of conversations with Mark now, and I do think he's going to, I think I mentioned to you before, Corey, I did one of his games back in September of 2022, and he impressed me then. Even though they were on the road, they were playing on a 90-degree day on artificial turf. He played very well against a good Missouri State team.
Coming off injury, right?
Coming off injury, yes, that's true. So I do think he's poised beyond his years. He's played in a lot of big games. I'll promise this. Now, I'll reflect back on what I told the guys at Western. The first thing I said to him in the meeting, I said, the bad news is I can't help you. I'm talking about the Western players. I can't help you to make it to Pasadena. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Is helping Iowa players realize their dream of playing in the Rose Bowl. I can't help you do that. But if we can make it to the national championship in FCS football, you're going to think it's Pasadena. And that was a pretty good way to put it. So the reason I bring it up, of course, is Mark has played in national championship games, and they are on national TV, and there's millions of people watching. And so that's quite a bit of pressure for a college player, especially the guy taking snaps. And he performed well in those games, and even last fall, when they were eliminated deep in the playoffs, he still played another solid game. So I think he's going to play well for us. I think he's going to give us outstanding leadership, and I do think that he'll probably end up playing on Sunday too. That's kind of a bold statement, of course, because he hadn't done that yet. But I'll remind you, of course, that there are guys from the Missouri Valley Football Conference that have done it. And it wouldn't surprise me. Matter of fact, our guy from Solon was drafted in the 7th round today.
I was thinking David Johnson a few years ago. He carved himself out a nice career he was sort of a freak, but kid from Miller, right?
Yeah.
Talking about Miller.
Yeah, Miller got drafted, I believe, in the 7th round today.
And I just as we were talking here, just had my phone chime. Iowa long snapper Luke Elkin just signed a deal with the Bears. So
not surprised. He's a good one.
It's hard to do it as a long snap as a specialist. It's just hard to do it in general. But he is with the Chicago Bears. He'll be reunited with Torrey Taylor.
I was going to say maybe more excited than Luke is Torrey, because
that's true.
Torrey's got his own snapper back.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm assuming he'll got a pretty good shot to make that roster.
They better have an awfully good deep snapper because Elkin's good.
We have a lot to get to here, folks. I guess we can start with the draft. So let's kind of run through some notes from yesterday and from today. I know the nation has been kind of captivated by the Shedeur Sanders storyline, and I think I have an idea of how you feel about the Sanders family, starting from the top down with Deion. And I don't want to put words on your mouth. I can tell you how I feel about it. I've spent very little time talking about it, not just because I run a Hawkeye platform, but because I just get tired of talking about it. I get tired of hearing about it. It's sort of like the Lonzo Ball, LeVar Ball thing a few years ago. Now the difference is LeVar Ball was never a great NBA player, and Deion Sanders is an all-time great. So there's a difference there. But I just feel like Deion makes everything about himself and everything about his kids.
Correct. And let's just compare and contrast. Kirk Ferentz gets it. Kirk understands it's not about the coaches. It's about the players. And Kirk tries to give as much publicity and as much credit to our players as he possibly can. Another simple example. When the team goes on the field, Kirk doesn't charge out at the front of them. Kirk knows it's all about the players. I'll send them out. They'll sprint on the field or jog on the field. And I'll give them the limelight because they're the guys that are doing the playing. That's not Deion, of course. In Deion's case, it's going to be a lot about Deion.
So the same thing with Shedeur. I just feel like everything's about Shedeur. The fact that he's getting his number retired, I resent that to some extent. Not that I really care, but why are you retiring a guy who I mean, he was good this past year,
Did he
but
play 1 year or two for Colorado?
I think it was.
Or more?
That's a good question. Was he at Jackson State before, right?
Yeah.
1 or 2, right? But this past year, I don't even know what their record was, but they didn't make the playoff.
Well,
They were, I think, 9-3.
Here's one thing I couldn't help but notice. Even the little bit I watched Colorado, Lisa asked me last night. She said, "What'd you think of Shedeur Sanders?" And I said, "Well, to be honest with you, I always did think he was overrated.
Yeah.
Not that he's not a good quarterback. I thought he could do a lot of good things. But the guy that made him look good is the guy that got drafted, second in the draft? That's the guy that made him look good more than any single player."
So let's start. We kind of get off the Shedeur thing, and I want to talk about Caleb Johnson, selected 83rd overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, I wasn't surprised that he slipped down to 83rd. He did not test as well at the combine as I thought he would. In fact, if you look at combine numbers, I didn't think anybody tested all that great at the combine.
You're talking about
Iowa. I'm talking about Iowa.
Okay.
Now, if you go back, there are other guys that have not tested well at the combine from Iowa and then have succeeded in the NFL. Sebastian Castro tested horribly at the combine.
And yet we know he's a football player.
He is a football player. And I did not expect some of the numbers that we saw. But and you can give us some insight as far as what those numbers mean, how much NFL teams really read into those things. But, I mean, that is a place. Pittsburgh has had some bigger backs over the years. Most recently, Najee Harris. So I think Tomlin, there's something to be said for Caleb Johnson, the physicality he brings. I'll just be very upfront with this. I've been criticized on the show before because people have acted like I'm trying to discount Caleb Johnson. He was their best player last year. I think in general, he was their most important player without question for the offense. There's no question about it. He was their most important player. Right. That's hard to do as a running back. But at the same time, I think you and I are on the same page. And 2/3 of his career, all right, and I'm talking 2 of his 3 years where he was playing, I thought he underachieved. With his size, the perceivable talent that we observed or we expected from him, and he's got the physical tools, I thought he underachieved, and I thought at times, and this is not a personal shot, I observed a lot of self-promotion. Sort of like what we see with Colorado players, a lot of self-promotion. And I picked up on some of that with Caleb. So I struggled to hop on that train. Last year was totally different. He was phenomenal. But remember, he got suspended because of an off-season issue related to team activities. He missed the first half of the first game. I'm not saying that had anything to do with why he slipped down to 83rd. I think it's a good destination. But I don't think he was underrated. I think that's probably a fair place for him to be selected.
I thought he would slide a little bit deeper than what a lot of Iowa fans might expect. And it's simply, we talked about him before. He's a glider. He's a glider. Doesn't have great change of direction. He's what you might call a big bag, but I think a lot of experts would tell you, I'm talking about people in the NFL, he carries his pads a little bit higher than what they'd like.
He did find, I did think, and I remember talking to Liddell about this after the Iowa State game. That was the first time that I'd really seen him use his size and strength to, even though he doesn't get real low, keep those legs churning and get yards after contact. Yeah. But that took a while for that to click with him.
Yeah, I think he did show more physicality this past year than the previous year. And but here's a guy that comes to mind for me. The guy from Arizona State. I don't even know when he was drafted. I think he was on the board
Scatterbo
a long time too. But the thing I appreciate about Scatterbo, for what I've known about him, he always brings it every game. I mean, you got to say nobody has a bigger heart than Scatterbo. And I'm basing it on what I saw in some important games, in the bowl game or whatnot, in big games. He impressed me. And now that doesn't mean he's going to be a great NFL back. I'm simply giving him credit for being a very physical runner.
And for the record, Caleb was incredibly consistent this year.
Yeah.
But the point is, it did, I don't want to say late bloomer, but it took a while, for whatever reasons, it took a while for that to click, even up into this last offseason where there were some off-field issues that led to the suspension. But I think the Steelers are getting a good one. And ironically enough, the second Hawkeye selected was also by the Steelers, and that was Y.A. Black in the 5th round. He actually went a little higher than I expected.
I thought it was neat that the guys the Steelers drafted get to continue wearing black and gold. Wearing almost the same uniform. And I don't doubt that they're both going to represent us well in the future.
And a couple of guys who are big at their given positions. Both of those guys. I mean, Y.A. Black's one of the biggest college football players that I've stood next to. I'd probably say him and Carl Davis. And you stood next to a lot of them as well. But Y.A. Black is a big dude, and he had his moments last year. He did not test well during pro day, during the combine, but I think they like his size. They like his experiences. I'm sure he tested out incredibly well as it relates to interviews and leadership, all of that. Yeah. I'm sure he got rave reviews from Iowa.
Yeah, probably so. I do wonder, because I'm aware, and you are too, Corey, he's from the Twin Cities, right? Do we know for sure what the Gophers thought of him? Did they want him and simply weren't able to keep him?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Were they lukewarm about him? I don't know. I hope he does have a little chip on his shoulder, because that's what you need to have to play at your very best, is to be determined to show them that you absolutely deserve to be drafted as high as you were, if not even higher than what you were.
And then you finish off with round 7, and you've got 3 guys taken in the 7th round, starting with Mason Richman, who, it's funny, the Seahawks tweeted out that they had selected Mason Richman, and they tweeted him out as a guard. We've selected guard Mason Richman. To my understanding, he'd never played guard at Iowa, but that tells me they see him as a guard.
And yet his frame he's big enough to qualify as a tackle, right?
Did you think he's an NFL tackle? Just given what he did at Iowa?
I assumed somebody was going to give him a shot at tackle.
Yeah. And maybe they will. Maybe that's more of a PR mistake.
I don't know anything about Seattle. Maybe their mindset for O-line would be for guards to be that big. Maybe everybody's that big in their line. I don't know.
So Mason Richman goes 234th overall in the 7th round to Seattle. And they have taken a couple of Hawkeyes here in recent time as well. Seems like you have those franchises that like certain players. Talk about the Houston Texans. They must love Iowa State. They've got 3 Iowa State receivers now. I was talking once again to Mark Rogers last night about this. His guy, C.J. Stroud's going to have some talented receivers to throw to.
And the 2 guys this year I know of went 2nd round, 3rd round, right?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, those guys are good.
I said this, and I even tweeted it out, and this is going to make some Hawkeye fans upset, but if there's one, and Iowa has a guy in Tim Lester who understands receiver play, I think we can agree on that. But if there's one program to try your best to emulate at that position, it's Iowa State. Not Ohio State. It's not, because Ohio State, they're getting the 4- and 5-star kids. Iowa State is year in and year out getting great receivers in the portal, out of high school, kids that aren't highly regarded, and they just make them into NFL players.
Yeah, somebody's doing a good job of coaching.
They sure are. Luke Lachey goes in the 7th round as well. He goes 250. Well, no, before we get to Luke, Connor Colby. I
was wondering if Connor went first or if
Connor went 6 picks before Luke. So 249 overall. He goes to the San Francisco 49ers, also a franchise that seems to like their Hawkeyes.
You bet.
And I'm expecting him to be a guard. Is that fair?
Absolutely, yeah.
So he goes 249, and then the final pick for Iowa, former Hawkeye Luke Lachey, who, had he stayed healthy a year ago with the start he had and the tight end centric offense that was here, I think the offense hurt him. And he's one of the few guys I'd say that about. And I want to get your take on that. I think the offense, stylistically, everything actually hurt his stock.
Yeah, because it appeared that he wasn't playing as well as the previous year. Yeah. I don't think that's fair to Luke. I think our offense didn't emphasize the tight end quite as much in fall of 24 as they did in 23. And not to mention the quarterback issue maybe was part of the problem too.
Now, Brock Purdy, anecdotally, is an example of, hey, it doesn't matter when you get drafted.
Right.
But in the NBA, they always say that if you're late 2nd round, you'd rather go undrafted. Is that principle true in the NFL? Would you rather go undrafted and have some freedom, or would you rather still get drafted in the 6th or 7th round?
Well, there are a lot of nice stories about guys getting drafted in the 7th round. The best example is our guy playing for the 49ers, of course, Mr. Irrelevant. And Purdy's done a great job of proving himself. But I've always said this to guys that did not get drafted. I've always approached them this way, and I even told them this before the draft. Listen, I know you're hoping to be drafted, but please understand, if you're not drafted, you're going to have options for free agency. And now you're the guy calling the shots, not them. You can go to the team that you feel is the best opportunity for you. So in that regard, it's not a bad thing to be a free agent either, because the typical free agent does have more than one option.
Sked in the chat says Caleb Johnson going to get a lot of volume with the Steelers. Apparently they love playing their rookie contract guys a lot. I'd have to go back and look at the evidence there. Steeler Chick 46 also excited about the Hawkeyes ending up in Pittsburgh. And another guy ended up in Pittsburgh is Sebastian Castro. He goes undrafted, but he ends up in Pittsburgh as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, and that's a good example. It wouldn't shock me at all if we learned later on Sebastian had several options. And as we discussed already, he's the guy that's in the catbird seat because he gets to decide where he's going.
Right. And for that matter, I mean, he's one guy that I know. I thought if you had asked me 3 months ago, is Sebastian Castro going to get drafted? I just said he's going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. But that shows you I'm not an NFL scout and why I'm not paid to be an NFL scout, because I would have never expected that guy to go undrafted. But his numbers did hurt him.
Yeah, no doubt. But I've always said this. Some guys test better than they play. Other guys play better than they test.
Right.
Which group would you want to choose from? I believe I'll take the guys that play better. And Sebastian, it wouldn't shock me at all for him to make a team. I'd be surprised, frankly, if he doesn't.
So Steelers may end up having 3 guys, Iowa guys in this rookie class. I mentioned Luke Elkin to the Bears, and then I see comments here in the chat. Roger brings up, can't believe that Higgins didn't get drafted with as productive as he was. Chaviota brings up, yes, he was signed by Baltimore. Again, I go back to it. Pro Day, Combine did not help. He just didn't test well. And it makes me think back, okay, did we overhype Higgins? Are like you said, are the numbers maybe just not as important for certain guys? How do you explain a guy who was that productive at Iowa with the linebacking history that Iowa has under Seth Wallace, guys that have went to the NFL and had great careers? Josie Jewell, Drew Campbell, Jack Campbell, just got on the list. Christian Welch. Why did Jay Higgins slip out of the 7 rounds?
My guess is that one of the things they considered, this is a compliment to our defensive line coach and our defensive linemen. I think our guys in the defensive line did a better than average job of keeping our linebackers clean. And in other words, a little easier to play linebacker for Iowa and be productive, simply because our linemen do a good job of tying up O-linemen.
So you're saying he's overrated?
Not even really saying that. I don't know how he tested compared to what we thought he would do. But again, some NFL teams, let's face it, there's a lot of money at stake. And if your job's on the line and you're sticking your neck out to sign a guy that doesn't test quite as well, you better be able to do that with confidence, because at some point, of course, you'll lose your job. If you take a guy that doesn't test quite as well as the next guy, obviously, you're really putting your reputation on the line. And if it doesn't come through, then you might, in fact, be looking for another job as a player personnel guy.
Brian Bourne with a super chat here. Thank you, Brian. He says, I've seen a report on Instagram citing Luca Evans as the source. Castro's been signed by the Steelers. Yes, that has been confirmed by Iowa. So Iowa has confirmed that on social media that Sebastian Castro has signed as an undrafted free agent. So that is factual. And then he also adds, do you know when Kids Day will be this year? Thank you, and go Hawks. So Kids Day, I double check my schedule, Brian, but usually Kids Day, if I'm not mistaken, is the 2nd weekend in August, I believe. So it should be the 9th. And if it's not the 9th, it's the 16th. I'll double check that, but I can find that here shortly. But thank you for the super chat, Brian, and stick around, and I'll get you that information for sure. Blake says, Coach, are you surprised that Higgins didn't get drafted? I think we kind of addressed that. And he also wants to know about your thoughts on adding a defensive back from the FCS level. I talked about him yesterday, but Iowa adding Shahid
Barris.
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce his name.
As you know, Corey, I do games for
Yeah.
Missouri Valley football for TV, and I've done some South Dakota games. I saw his highlight video. It's pretty impressive. But what impressed me more is I saw his stats. He was a productive player.
Yes.
I mean, for 3 years, he's been a pretty productive player. So I don't doubt that he's going to compete with our two starters. And I'm assuming based on today, right now, Kemp's going to start with number 8 and number 2 as the starting corners, near as I can tell. They certainly got the reps with the ones today.
I think TJ played well.
TJ,
I thought he looked good out there today.
And I did read some comments from Phil indicating that he thought TJ had done the best job overall this spring of just trying to play at a high level and not making mistakes. And he was very complimentary of TJ first and foremost, and then also said some nice things about Deshaun. So I think it's safe to say, and with Nestor taking off, because there was a time, I think, wasn't it true, Corey, that Nestor was mentioned in the same breath as those two?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm no insider. I don't have inside information on the Nestor thing. I know his dad was the head coach at West Branch. That relationship fell apart. He was there 1 year, but he got to West Branch as a head coach after his son got a scholarship to play at Iowa, and it seemed like an odd thing to do. You know, you have two guys graduate in front of you, in DeJean and Harris, respectively. But Harris leaving, that gives you got 3 guys basically competing for 2 jobs, unless he just saw the writing on the wall that, hey, maybe Jalen Watson's moving in front of him. And maybe we've heard some good things about Alex Moda. I mean, if you're scared of young guys like that moving up, then maybe you should move on. But going to Minnesota was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser.
It was a surprise. I didn't see that coming because he had done a good job on specialty teams, as you know, and seemed to have a promising future in the back end.
So my guess is Shaheed Morris will be a starter if one of the – I think it's going to probably be a 3-player race for that second spot. I think he's got the upper hand on Deshaun Lee, kind of reading between the lines. My guess is that other spot will come down to Barros and Deshaun Lee. But again, you need as much competition there. That's been a position where they've struggled to stay healthy.
Yeah,
guys just tend to get hurt, and in season and out of season.
You're right. So many people put so much importance on whether you're listed first or second on the depth chart. The reality, even if you're second, you better have the mindset that you're 1 play away from being out there because of injury.
Steeler Chick 46 brings up that Steelers did draft Logan Lee, who tested really well at the combine. Was he at the combine or was that pro day? He tested really well. His metrics were incredibly good, which surprised a lot of people, but he is on that Steelers roster. Circle Herc says, OMG, coach, you let him in your house. Thank you. I appreciate that, Circle Herc. James H. Houston drafting a bunch of players from Iowa universities. Yes, so universities in the state of Iowa. Amanda, thank you for reminding everybody to hit the like button. It is much appreciated, even if it's just for our NFL rookies. And Mark here, Voice of College Football. I think Higgins is too slow and stiff. That's the knock. Interesting.
I could see some people thinking that. I give some credit to our D line and how well they protect our linebackers. Maybe they simply have the opinion our linebackers are kept clean, so they better make a lot of tackles. And our guys did make a lot of tackles, both of them.
Okay, what I want to do here, and certainly we can, folks, the phone line's open. If we don't get any calls tonight, that's fine because it's been so long since you and I have just talked on this show, and I think the nearly 200 people who are watching would probably just enjoy hearing from you. But I do want to kind of run through some notes as far as personnel is concerned.
Sure.
Because there's always people in the media, and there's guys that do a really good job of tracking this stuff during spring ball, but it's hard to keep track of it all in the media. So my job when I go to these spring practices is not to come to these vast conclusions based on what I'm seeing, but I'm more of a roll call. I just like to see, okay, who's fitting in where, who's playing, who's not playing, who's sitting out, who's still here, even though they're in the portal. We saw a couple of guys today that are in the portal that are still with Iowa. We can talk about those. A few guys, and we're hoping to get Tom Kaker here in for the last 15 to 20 minutes. I've not heard from Tom here recently. I think he was planning on jumping on, but he may have had something come up. But he's always good with some of these injuries as well. But there were a number of guys that, off the top of my head, that were out with injuries. One being Sam Phillips, the transfer receiver from Chattanooga. He was not in pads. Doesn't sound like that's serious. Doesn't sound like any of the injuries are real serious. The one people were concerned with, even on the media side of the field today, just the chatter amongst media people, was the Jennings-Dunker injury, because it sounds like he did have to go through a procedure. Kirk did not appear concerned whatsoever with Jennings-Dunker. I think we expect him to be the right tackle if he's back. I don't think he's going to move to the left.
Yeah, I made this note. Kirk specifically said it was an orthopedic issue, and it's of no concern.
So it could be a simple cleanup, right? Or
it could be a simple procedure. No concern going forward. That's what he said.
So that's one. I mentioned Sam Phillips. Ethan Herkett was out as well. He was in street clothes, but he was made available to the media. Typically, that's a sign, too, that not a real serious issue. Brian Allen was out today with an apparent injury, but he was rah-rahing. You could hear he was a loud guy out there in the field, appears to be a leader on that defensive line.
Xavier was out.
Xavier Wampa was out. Logan Jones was out. He was also made available to the media. Bo Stevens, who we expect to be a starter in the interior of that line, he was out. Jeremiah Pittman, who we expect to be a leader on the defensive side, may not be a starter now with a couple of transfers they brought in. He was also out. One note, I mentioned guys that are in the portal but were here and playing. Khalil Tate just entered the portal a week ago. I really like that young man, Don. I know we haven't seen him much. Really well-spoken kid, smart kid, all academic conference kid. Really just a good guy. And I just think I don't think he's going to play. And so he entered the portal here a week ago, and he's been allowed to stay here. He's making the most of his reps, which I admire. I respect a guy doing that. Yeah. Nothing against guys like Brennan Sullivan or Gavin Hoffman who have found homes. But Khalil Tate was in pads. So we'll see. I guess this was the last chance for him to impress the coaches and maybe move up a spot somewhere.
Yeah, but a lot of our listeners maybe presume, Corey, that if you enter the portal, then you're without question going somewhere else. The bottom line, you still have to find a place to go, a place that wants you more than Iowa wants you.
Right.
And oftentimes, of course, you don't get the phone calls you thought you were getting. And that's one more reason to be sure. There's nothing wrong with entering the portal and continuing to practice. Absolutely not.
I've heard some people here recently, and these conversations have come up more with the portal being emphasized so much more as such a bigger deal now than ever before. I had some people say, well, it's always been, Iowa's always handled things this way with the portal. And I don't know that, I'm not saying that those people that say that are wrong, because there's been people who have worked Iowa media and covered this sport and this team a lot longer than I have. But I at least in the last 5 to 8 years, I remember a number of cases where guys have entered the portal, and that was just, they're gone. Like, even if they don't find homes, they're no longer practicing with the team. That's come up with bowl prep. Remember, guys have entered the portal in December, and it's like, well, who's sticking around? And typically it would only be guys who are graduates.
Right.
Dallas Cradith was an example here a few years ago. He stuck with the team. Yeah, I think he even played in the bowl game. But I believe that year, everybody else that entered the portal, and they were a handful, none of them were with the program now. I think I could be wrong on this. I think Iowa's handling it differently now because the portal is just, you have this huge influx of guys and outflux of guys, right? You can't just say everybody that wants to explore other options has to leave immediately. First of all, it's not probably ethical now, and it's not practical.
Right. Well, the truth is, you need people to be able to practice.
Right.
And that's another reason that you just don't automatically exclude all those that enter the portal.
And so I'm sure somebody will tell me I'm wrong, that Iowa's always handled it that way. But Jared Bowie was another guy who was not in pads today. Jacob Gill was not in pads today. He was made available. Jared Bowie was out there throwing after the practice was complete. I saw him over there with the receivers throwing around. So my guess is he's fine. Burt Goucher, linebacker out of Sycamore, Illinois. He was also out. James Rezar, he's been in the portal since December. He's the one guy who's been in the portal since December who's still with the team because he doesn't have a home.
Right.
He does not have a home right now. Iowa wanted him to switch to receiver. I don't know who prompted the move, basically, not the position move, but did he say, hey, I don't want to play receiver anymore, so I'm leaving? Or did Iowa say, we really don't have a spot for you anywhere? you need to find another home. But he is still with the program, did not play today. He's recovering from a serious injury, but trying to find a home. Of course, Mark Gronowski did not play today. Drew Campbell was out. Carson Cooney, he was also out today with an injury. And that may be it. I may be missing somebody in there. But, that's quite a few guys. But, Tegan Davis also, the former Eastern Illinois commit.
Quite a few guys, you're right, Corey, but I've always maintained this. One of the worst injuries of all is an injury at the end of spring ball. Because if a guy's nicked up at all, hold him out, because you don't want a guy to be injured in practice 15 in the month of late April.
Roger Rogers says, what is Coach doing to stay so fit?
Having difficulties swallowing food. We don't need to share all that, but radiation is, I know there are a lot of cancer survivors out there. Radiation is that gift that continues to give. And
you took that to a really sad, somber place, didn't you?
And I have no complaints, but it takes me an hour to eat what used to take half hour. I'll say it that way. Typical meal, a bite of food, I'll chew it more than 100 times before I even attempt to swallow it. And that's just because my brain tells me I'm not yet ready to swallow this food. I've got to mutilate the food first. I know it's more than 100 chews because I've counted them. So an average meal for me is something like 4,000 chews, I think, just to give you an idea. And that takes time. So, yeah, here's the truth, Corey. If you chew your food, if you eat slowly, you've heard people say this, you won't eat as much. Maybe it's simply because there comes a time when I'm kind of tired. I've been trying to eat for a long time, and I'm kind of losing interest.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're trying to eat lunch and they're starting supper, right?
Not quite that bad.
Okay.
But I'm not looking for any sympathy out there. Just know I recognize that's an inconvenience. I could have lost my life a long time ago and didn't, thanks to our doctors here at U of I. So I'm grateful for that. I had a home visit from the healthcare people the other day, and I reassured them, I'm hoping to live to be 100. I have difficulty swallowing, but that's just a nuisance.
Right.
That's not a deal breaker. So I'll continue to hope to live to be 100.
Kyle Hawks in the chat. Any word on Nick Jackson finding a home? I've not seen anything official. He was a guy that didn't get invited to the combine. That was a bit of a shocker as well.
Yeah, I think they simply assessed that he's too undersized.
But boy, great college player. I mean,
Absolutely.
Phenomenal college player.
He knew how to find the ball. He did. He found it, 400-something times.
Lomansky, thank you as well for telling everybody. Hit the like button. It is appreciated. I am not seeing anything on. I'm just double checking on Nick Jackson. Nothing on Nick. So we'll keep up to date on that and see. I'm sure he'll get it somewhere. Somebody is going to give him a chance to earn his way because he's too productive.
Nick's going to be an outstanding performer on specialty teams too.
Yeah. Let's see.
I saw the comment about baseball. Maybe you don't want to touch that one right now.
We can touch it. T. Hink says, were you at the Western Illinois baseball game that
yes, I
Leathernecks won that game?
And I fully expected to congratulate Iowa after the game. And
could do that.
Baseball's a funny game. Let's just remember, incidentally, Iowa's already won the first 2 games of the Indiana series. They swept another Big Ten opponent. I shouldn't say they swept. They're going to win the series versus Indiana. One game remains tomorrow. The bottom line is our guys play at a high level of baseball. We did not throw anywhere near our best pitchers against Western, and we weren't good enough they threw slightly better pitchers against us than we threw against them. Sounds like I'm making an excuse for Iowa. But baseball is a funny game, as you know, Corey. Sometimes you hit it to the wrong places.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I'll just remind everybody, the best teams in Major League Baseball win 65% of the time. And the very worst teams, they win 35% of the time, roughly. So it's not easy to win all the games that you end up playing. even in college baseball. It's difficult to do.
I appreciate all the excitement and the passion for Iowa baseball. Jason says you're going to need to start covering baseball, Corey. Amanda, go Coach Heller. A comment here from David Alexander. How about some baseball shows, Corey? Well, let me just say this.
I got one comment.
Go ahead. No, I just said go Iowa, go Hawks. But if you can get a sponsor for an Iowa baseball show, I will do it. There's not enough interest. And I hate saying that because I love Iowa baseball. I'm not going to lie and say I've watched every game this year, but I'm going to be fully invested postseason. And I'd love to be able to do more with Iowa baseball, but there just isn't enough. You can't just be a bandwagon media person
Right.
when they're winning. Let's talk about it when they're winning. But no, Rick Heller's done a phenomenal job, and they lost some people too.
He's one of the best baseball coaches in all of college baseball.
Yes.
Absolutely true.
That's a Gary Barta hire. That's a Gary Barta hire right there.
You threw me off there, you can tell. All of a sudden there, I like Gary Barta even better.
All right. Blake wants to know what your thoughts are on new Northern Iowa football coach Todd Stepsis.
I only know what I've heard. I don't know him personally, but I've simply heard without beating up on the last regime. I've heard that the players have responded really well to the new coaching staff. I've heard that from people that are connected with UNI football. So that's a good sign. I've always reminded young coaches, listen, part of your job is to make it fun for the players. And it's hard. It's a grueling sport. But you still have to try to be sure that they're having fun doing it. And that simply means building them up, not tearing them down. And I think the UNI coaching staff, the new coaching staff, is maybe doing a better job than the previous staff. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm simply relating what some of the players have commented this spring, what some of them have said. They like the new coaching staff. They feel a little more appreciated than what they did. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Let's add in our caller here. We've got James is here with us on hold. James, good to see you.
Yeah, how you doing today?
We're doing all right. Good to see you, James. Good to have you here.
First off, question I have for you is the portal closed yesterday, right?
Correct. 25th. Yep.
So
the question here in the chat, it was just real quick.
Yeah.
Kyle Hawk says, with the recent signing
That's
of
what
the
I was gonna
transfer
ask.
quarterback,
yeah,
do you lose another? Was I talking to somebody today? It might have been Elliot or Sean Bach over 247. I was surprised they didn't lose somebody. I thought maybe Jackson Stratton would pursue other opportunities. By the way, Kirk confirmed today he's still a walk-on, which is interesting.
I hope he doesn't go anywhere, and we can discuss how he plays.
Well, you like his arm, and a lot of people like his arm. I think he's got a chance. I'm surprised he's still a walk-on, frankly, that Iowa hasn't given him a scholarship. But I was surprised with Iowa going out and getting this Hecklinski kid from Wake Forest. I understand the connection there with the new analyst, but I was a little surprised that they were able to hang on to Jimmy, Hank, Mark, and Jackson. That surprises me. How are you going to have 5 guys? You're going to have 5 quarterbacks on scholarship, or 5 guys on the roster at quarterback?
Corey, we always had 5 guys.
Well, you may have always had 5, but that's not normal for Iowa, is it? We can go back and look. Maybe with walk-ons, but Jackson Stratton is not a typical walk-on.
I think Coach Fry had the right idea with quarterbacks. Typically, we signed 1 a year.
You didn't have scholarship limits. You didn't have roster limits. You had scholarship
We had
limits.
scholarship
You didn't have roster limits, and maybe Iowa won't either with this the way they're maybe phasing this in.
Well, think of it this way, Corey. I think anybody that operates with less than 5 quarterbacks is very foolish. I'll tell you why. You need 3 on the varsity end of the field because you better. Well, as in the case with Iowa, maybe there's some debate about who's 2 and who's 3. I think right now, based on what I've seen, there's some debate about that. And we can discuss that as we go. I'm talking about our guy from Auburn versus Shaggy. I think that's an interesting debate. The bottom line, you need 3 on the varsity that can play winning football. That's ideal. They can play winning football. That's hard to do. But you also need 2 guys on the scout team that can imitate the other team to a high level.
Does Iowa agree with you, though? Because if if what you're saying is true, why is Jackson Stratton not on scholarship? Why Jimmy Sullivan's on scholarship? Hey, I mean, look, if it's a year-to-year thing anymore, right? It is a year-to-year thing. It is a year-to-year thing.
Absolutely.
So if it's a year-to-year thing, guys are moving around so much anyways. How are you going to bring in Jimmy Sullivan, who, if I'm hearing you correctly, he's not anywhere close right now to Hank Brown and to certainly Gronowski or even Stratton. Why? If I'm Stratton, I'm looking saying, why is Jimmy Sullivan on scholarship? I played last year. I started last year, and I'm a walk-on.
Well, based on the performance today, that is a good question.
Go ahead, James. Is that your question?
No, well, that was one of my questions. Was just like I was surprised that everybody stayed in the way, but like I also felt they got him late, where maybe people did make their decision. You know what I mean? Like they kind of got him late, and then they don't know how he's gonna fit in. So maybe some of those people don't know. You know what I mean? Like where they got him late, so that like maybe they still think since they have the upper hand, they can beat him out right away. If that makes sense, right? Like,
I hope that's the case. I hope all those guys just think, no, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win the job. But I thought the same thing, James, because when they timed this with Heklinski, these guys had a few days just to decide, okay, do I want to stay put or do I want to hit the portal? And I don't know how they would have handled it with quarterback, but Kirk has said this, and it's been apparent with guys like Khalil Tate, James Rezar. If you hit the portal, you don't have to leave right away. Yeah. You can go test the water and talk to, but they haven't even done that. I'm surprised that guys like Jackson Stratton haven't tested the water. Let's not forget, at one point, as a senior in high school, he was committed to play for Washington. So it's not like he hasn't been pursued by high major schools. Talk about his arm a little bit. I know you've touched on it a little bit, but why do you like him maybe more than any other guy that was in pads today?
Well, I think it's safe to say I left with this impression. Right now, Tim is not sure. This is just my guess. I haven't discussed this with Tim, and certainly I don't want to put words in his mouth. But it appears today, based on the snaps that they received, there is some question about who's number 2. Our guy from Auburn got a lot of snaps, but I'm pretty sure the guy with even more snaps was Jackson Stratton. And I can see why. He appeared to be the more productive passer. I don't have any idea what the numbers were today, but he threw a lot of nice footballs. As a lot of people would say, he knows how to sling the football. He does. I realize, of course, he's, I think, 1 year older. Is that right? Or 2 years older?
I believe 1 year. Well, no, I think you're right. 2 years. Well, no, I believe 2 years because it says sophomore. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. I believe. I don't think he was a true freshman last year at Auburn. So he'd have 2 years on Jimmy. But Jimmy did get here in bowl prep. So he got a head start.
Yeah. Hank, as I knew it, spent 2 years.
Yeah.
Or a year and a half, I guess. Because he's here now. A year and a half at Auburn.
Yeah.
Right? So this is his second year. He's got 3 to play 3.
Yeah, but he got here during bowl prep.
Oh, he was even here in the fall.
No, he played the whole year at Auburn and then got here in the
yes,
offseason.
he got here.
He was able already.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay, so he's only 1 year at Auburn.
No, he was there 2 years.
Okay.
But he redshirted the first one.
He's down to 2 years.
Yeah.
No.
No, he's a sophomore. Yeah, he redshirted the first year.
He redshirted the first year
at Auburn.
Played the second,
and then
he's here now. But he just got here early.
So he's still in year. In other words,
in year 3.
Like I said, he came after a year and a half.
Right, but I guess I'm just saying we're mincing over words, but he's in his sophomore year, redshirt sophomore year. He's got 3 years of eligibility.
3 to play 3. Okay.
Yep.
And the question then I have for you is how much time does number 19 have? Because I know he's got 2 or 3 years left. I'm not sure.
He's got 2.
So he's 1 year older.
Yeah, and he's got, he's from nowhere around here. I mean, he's from La Jolla, California. He was playing out at Colorado State. Like I say, he's committed to a Pac-12 school at the time in Washington. I admire him. Maybe he really likes it here.
I think he does.
That's great. I think that's phenomenal.
I think realizing he's not on scholarship, it would not shock me if he got scholarship offers elsewhere.
So
teams aren't afraid to tamper.
So I'm sure if they're interested, they would have reached out.
I would hope that he's with us because it's hard for me to imagine, even in the fall, he wouldn't be either number 2 or number 3. And you've already heard me say, you better have 3 guys that are ready to play.
Yeah, for sure, and especially since he has the time over heckling, he won't be here till we start our next practices, for sure. So they'll all have the upper hand over him anyways, to start out with.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like bringing in that safety. You said, what's his name? Ty Hudgens. Is that his name to do from Purdue?
Yeah, they're bringing in Ty Hudkins
Hudkins, yeah.
from Purdue. He's a second-year guy, redshirted last year, so he's got 4 years. So he's a depth guy, but they've got him coming in on visit on Monday and Tuesday.
Another quarterback.
No, another safety.
Okay.
DB.
Okay.
DB. Yep.
Good. I thought you were
But
throwing.
no, my question with
Yeah,
that
they're
is just
bringing in
like,
another one.
no, it's cool to see them still trying to get guys to even in the portal, but it's just gonna be interesting to see how the year pans out. And we lost players, obviously. There's guys you lose, like Khalil, but obviously you have people in front of them that you feel comfortable with. Most of the guys that transferred out, you at least have people in front of them that you feel comfortable with, other than maybe Rusty. But I don't know how much we used a fullback last year with Lester anyways, so I don't know about that whole thing with losing your one fullback. I don't know how much we used one last year with that aspect of that's like the only actual starter you
Real
lost.
quick, I have to address these 2 comments in the chat.
Go ahead.
Had 5 last year. Yes, they had 5 quarterbacks last year, but Jackson Stratton was an unproven walk-on. That's what I'm trying to get people. He is no longer an unproven walk-on. He started a Big Ten game 2 Big Ten games last. He's not an unproven walk-on, so it's totally different in my mind. Totally different.
And he did not put his finger in his eye.
Now you may say, well, they have
performed okay.
You may say they have an unproven guy in Jimmy Sullivan, but he's on scholarship. I'm just saying, my recollection is typically when they've had 5 guys, they have 4 guys that are on scholarship and then a walk-on. Now, T. Hink says there will be 6 guys in that quarterback room next fall. Well, let's see. Do the math on that.
Well, you've already heard me say you need 5 guys even to practice well, 3 to get ready for the game, 2 guys to run the scout team. Obviously, if you have an injury, you're down to 4, and that's not good.
So am I not counting correctly here?
No, I don't think you're missing it because you got Gronowski, you got Brown, Stratton.
You got Stratton. You got so who's 6 guy? Who's the 6th
Sullivan
guy?
and Heklinski.
Who's the 6th guy?
I don't even remember the 6th quarterback. Those are the only names I remember at quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know where T. Hink's getting the 6th guy.
Is it for sure? I don't hear. Okay.
I mean, Brendan Sullivan's gone. So if we're counting Brendan, he's gone. And Doc Peace, again, if you missed Kirk Ferentz's press conference, he talked about this. I don't know where. I'd have to go back and count the number of guys on this active roster, but there may not. It sounds like they may not have a requirement to be down to 105, which is actually going to be the disadvantage of Iowa since they've had to basically cut people. So.
Yeah, but maybe if some of those guys too don't find homes, they can reroute them back. You know what I mean? Like based off that part too. Like
they're not finding home. If they can't find homes, I don't know that Iowa.
Well, I mean, they're always keeping restart. They're always keeping restart around. No, I'm saying they're always keeping restart around. So maybe the back, hey, we'll keep it around for one more year. Then you can see if you can find a place after that, if that makes sense, right? To get more film or something like that, right? Like,
sure,
I could see him doing something like that. Yeah. I can see him doing something like that. Where like maybe we add you for 1 more year, you get more practice film, maybe see if somebody else wants to pick you up after that year. Like that's something I could see him doing kind of as well. As more saying, maybe not playing as much, but more just being like, hey, you still be on the team then.
So thank you, T. And I stand corrected. T. Hink is right. I'm wrong.
Who's the 6th quarterback?
Pat Fitzgerald's son. Yeah, Pat Fitzgerald's son.
He's not here yet. I totally forgot about him.
He will be here in the fall.
So he would. So I this is my guess. Now the fact that they were able to hang on to Stratton, and Sullivan, and Brown, and Gronowski, and this kid from Wake, and they're bringing in Fitzgerald. The portal's closed. So he's right. They're likely to have 6 guys, unless Stratton is graduating early and can enter. I believe graduates can still enter the portal at any point if he's graduating in May because he's ahead. Maybe he is. He is a junior, so he's.
Graduates can enter whenever.
So if he can enter whenever, maybe he just wants to graduate, and then he can explore options in the summer. We've seen Charlie Jones did that a few years ago.
Right.
So maybe a guy does that, but that is incredible, and I think that's. I could be wrong on this, but I think that speaks more to the Lester effect and Tim Lester's whatever his stance on numbers are. Or is. I'd have to go back. James, do you recall a time when Iowa carried 6 quarterbacks into
Well,
the
I mean,
season.
last year they carried what? McNamara, Sullivan,
They have 6 quarterbacks last year.
not
Yeah,
6.
they
But I'm
had-
saying like usually I don't remember them really carrying 6. 'Cause usually you says
I
4
think
and then
we-
a walk on
I
usually.
think we pretty much routinely carried 6.
no.
But let me qualify. And one of them for sure is a walk-on, if not 2.
It
But we
wouldn't-
were on the squad. I think there were any number of times we had 6 because you need a little bit of insurance. You got to have a scout team, and if you only have one scout team quarterback, shame on you, because that guy's not going to do a good job of emulating the other team's quarterback.
Well, I'll guarantee you in the last 5 years, there have been more years where they've had less than 6, but I'll check. Anyways, go ahead. I'm going to check on this, James. Anything else you got for
No,
us?
I was just gonna say it's good to have those guys out there, and I know a lot of guys were missing, but it's just good to see them culminate practice. And I know they're working hard, so hopefully they can have a good year. But the quarterback thing is interesting. The fact of, like he said, we have had quarterbacks get hurt, so we've had the need to use those guys, right? So it's always a benefit to have experience. Like Jackson still stay here, right? I'm glad he didn't leave in the aspect of he's still here, right? He didn't decide to transfer, so that's a good thing if you have experience behind him. And obviously, he didn't have the experience Sullivan had, right? If Sullivan would have stayed, right? Sullivan had way more experience than him, but you still have an experienced guy behind him who's played Big Ten games before and understands what it needs to take to win a Big Ten game and play in a Big Ten
I
game.
do
So I
have
think that's
one
a benefit
question
for
about
sure.
Sullivan. Is he likely, based on what we know, is he likely to be the starter?
Yeah, the Tulane starter who was going to be the starter, he had some off the field issue stuff. He transferred out anyways, but he had some off the field issue stuff and then transferred out. So
Real quick, last year, the fall roster, Stratton, Reesar, Sullivan, McNamara, Linez. There's 5 guys. Stratton was an unproven walk-on. Okay.
But he was the 6th guy.
No, he was
Oh,
the
he
5th.
was one
Yeah,
of the
he was
5.
the 5th.
Okay.
Let's go back to the year before that. The year before that would have been the 2023 fall season. And in 2023, their quarterbacks were as follows. Let's see if I can get to it here. Tommy Pahalski, walk-on. Linez, McNamara, Deacon Hill, Labus. 5 guys, unproven walk-on. So you have 4 scholarship guys, 1 walk-on. Let's go back to 2022. And I know some people are saying none of this matters because that was Brian Ferentz. But that's my point. That's precisely my point. I don't think this has happened where they've had 6 guys, let alone 5 guys that were all either scholarship or have played. We'll go one more year back here. So 2022, the roster looked like this. They had Carson May, Labus, Petrus. Is that it? That can't be it. That's all it's showing in 2022. Labus, Petrus, and May. Is that right?
no.
2022?
Are they listed by position? Is it
Yeah, we listed it by position.
I see.
Well, hey, when you have Petrus, you don't need anything else, Don.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go. Anything else, James? We got Tom Kaker standing by, but
No, I was gonna say you can get to him, but it's like I said, it's good to at least know we still have a backup that has a little bit of experience at least, and this benefit just in case. But it's good to see Mark throwing at least because maybe that means he's more ready than what he will be. Obviously, I know it was more of an upper arm injury than it was a lower leg injury like it was for Cade. So it's a benefit to see him still throwing the ball, since it was upper arm injury. So that's a benefit at least.
Right.
absolutely. James, thank you for being here,
Yep.
sir.
No,
Always-
I'll let you go and enjoy your night.
Thank you, sir. All right. Before we get to Tom Kakert, 2 quick questions. Steeler Chick wants to know about cornerbacks. We talked about that earlier. TJ Hall had a really impressive hit today. Was that on KJ Parker?
I don't remember
I
who
had
the
that in your
receiver
notes.
was, but it was a nice play on
Or
TJ.
Seth Anderson, one of those 2. I
I've
believe.
got Phil's quote from this past week. I think he's talking about TJ. I think he's probably made the biggest jump when talking about being exact on every play. And of course, that's the way Phil Parker teaches. He wants somebody to strive to be 100% with how they play. And that's a nice comment that he paid TJ. He also said Deshaun Lee has also done some really good things. That told me he feels pretty good about those 2 guys. Not that they can't strive for improvement, they need to, because they need to play at the highest possible level. But I think he's feeling better about them, certainly than he felt last fall, no doubt.
I think they like some of those young guys, Godfrey, Watson, Moda.
And now the transfer from
South Dakota. Yeah. And you have a lot of respect for that level of football. That's a good program. I mean, it's not just a good conference. All the Dakota schools are good. I mean, you have the powers in South Dakota State, North Dakota State, but North Dakota and South Dakota are good programs.
Yes.
And there's the connection too with Miles Taylor, who I believe last I knew was on that staff, former Iowa safety. So there's the connection there. We know Steve Ferentz was coaching there up until recently, and he moved on to the NFL. And then I believe
their head coach has ties to the state of Iowa too.
And then this young man is from the same school where is it Alante? No, it's Bell, the new corner freshman Bell. I don't think those two guys played together, but same prep school out east. So, anyways, some connections there. Let's go on to our final question before we get to Tom. Aiden says, why do they want George playing well, they have not said that necessarily, but why do we want George to play left tackle if he played right tackle at Ferris? My guess, what you're going to say is Dunker's a natural right tackle, if anything. I think in the past you said Dunker maybe even be more of a natural guard playing tackle, so probably not going to move the other side of the line, but I don't know.
Yeah. The reason most people would think this way: if I've got right-handed quarterbacks, my blind side's on my left. My best tackle in terms of pass protection needs to be that left tackle. So my guess is, now maybe did he strictly play left tackle?
No, he's a right tackle at Ferris.
Well, I think simply we've assessed, first off, some guys have difficulty playing both left and right. Other guys do not. My guess is he has no difficulty playing left, and he has superior athletic ability to Jennings. There's nothing wrong with being the right tackle, because a lot of people are a little bit right-handed with their running game. And so the more physical tackle, maybe in a lot of cases, is the right tackle. The more athletic tackle is the backside protector, the left tackle.
And maybe we can get this quote for that was the one question I did ask Kirk today was how you evaluate Bryce George, because what's interesting about this, and of course I didn't bring this up in the press conference setting, but they have missed on some linemen in the portal. A couple of guys, Coy Cronk is a guy, some pretty strong accolades from Indiana, played a lot of football there. Now he struggled with some injuries. It was a weird COVID year, but he never really latched on at Iowa and took the starting role at right tackle by the horns as I expected him to. Dejon Parker, he was committed to Virginia. Iowa flipped him, but he was a Division II kid that everybody was excited about a couple of years ago. Great young man. Like, I'm sure he's really succeeding at life right now. Just a really cool kid. He never played.
Yeah.
So now they've also had success stories. Rusty Feth, now he didn't play tackle, but he was a kid they brought in, connection to Barnett from Miami, Ohio. So it's not that they've missed on everybody, but with Kirk being an O-line guy, they've had Brian Ferentz on staff. You have George Barnett on staff. They have plenty of O-line cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Experts.
Yeah, it's the reason I wanted to ask him that question was, is it almost harder to go get a guy in the portal from a lower level? Because at least when you're recruiting a high school kid, it's a roll of the dice, but at least you have 4 to 5 years with them potentially. But here's a kid who, he's been really successful at Ferris State, but he's Division II and he's got 1 year. So either it works or it doesn't. Either he's ready to play at this level. He ain't going to get spring. He's going to get here in May. Either he's ready to go or he's not.
Yeah, it's either rated a success or a failure.
Right.
And we all know that. That's going to be decided next fall.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time. We'll know in a short amount of time.
They're bringing him into play.
Absolutely.
He's got 1 year left. They're bringing him into play.
Now, what's encouraging, as I understand it, he was also recruited by Southern Cal.
Yes.
And Cal.
Right.
That kind of suggests maybe they also saw something in a Division II player from Ferris State. Maybe he is a superior athlete. If you go look at today's draft even, or yesterday's draft, there are guys taken, as you know, from smaller schools. And the NFL spends a lot of money trying to figure out who's better than who. Not that they're always right either. They're not. But my point is, there's a lot of scrutiny that these guys go through, and some of them still get drafted for a lot of money from smaller schools.
I was impressed with Bryce George looking at him on tape, but again, talk about a grain of salt. If I'm going to take what I saw today, a bunch of guys at Iowa with a grain of salt, I'm certainly going to take the dominance that I see from Bryce George on tape with a grain of salt. So that's why it's so intriguing to me. Like I'd like to sit down with Kirk and say, what's the science? How do you measure this? Especially when you only have 1 year of eligibility.
Yeah.
But again, they're not the only school that liked him. And he's won multiple national championships. He's all conference. He's all American. So
The one thing I'd be shocked to hear, we had a coach one time that made the mistake of saying in my presence, he said to a high school coach, he said, I can tell you if a guy plays well by looking at 10 snaps. And after the coach left, the high school coach left, I said, you shouldn't say that to a coach. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're saying that you can tell if a guy's good in 10 snaps? I believe that's called a highlight video, and I even had a good highlight video when I was in high school. So how do you know until you assess someone in a really, really difficult game, and that involves looking at least 60 snaps to go from start to finish in a pivotal game against a really solid opponent. And to be even more specific, maybe to line up against a great player that's being recruited by everybody. That's what you want to know. How did that guy play against a guy that's being recruited by everybody in the world? If he shows up well against that guy, that says a lot.
good stuff. Okay, I'm going to try to find that quote, that answer to that question from Kirk earlier today, because I do think it's an intriguing one. But let's bring in a guy who loves him some good offensive line play himself, Mr. Tom Kaker, HawkeyeReport.com. Tom, actually, let's go back to the other view. It's much better. We can see the whole view. Tom, you made it back to the Quad Cities safely, and you're not too sunburnt. That's good news.
That's why I wore my hat today, because I knew I was I was in trouble. Us fair-skinned guys with thinning heads of hair have to be careful.
This guy was getting the royal treatment up in the suites. So
I sat out in the crowd during practice.
Okay, all right.
And Tom, I wore a cap, and I still look like I got too much sun.
I did too. I feel like my cheeks are a little rosy right now. So,
Hey, I'll tell you what. This is a football show, but I have been doing everything to find intel on this. So, Tom, maybe your guys over at Hawkeye Report have intel on it. Let's transition real quickly to a basketball question. Is it Keza Giffa, the
yes.
Frenchman from High Point who's visiting this weekend? Do you have intel on him? I saw he was at the practice today.
Yeah, I heard he was wandering about, but did not make contact with him. But it's nice that they were able to get him in. He's a guard from High Point, and I know he'd been out to USC earlier this week. So I know Ben wants to get another guard, and preferably somebody who could handle the ball a little bit. So that's why he's appealing to it. But boy, I'll tell you guys, the market right now for players in the portal for basketball right now is insane. It's crazy. Guys are making so much. I can't believe how much money's getting thrown around. For guys that Jamie Shaw, who's one of our national guys on 3, wrote something this week, and it's like, guys that average like 6 points and 3 rebounds are getting $1 million.
Is that
really? That's insane for even like, I remember back in the day, like a John Koncak, who was a pretty average big man. Corey, this was way before your time.
I know the name though. Yeah, he's got brought up.
He got a crazy contract one year, and he hardly did anything in his NBA career. But he ended up getting this huge contract, and it's insane to me what's going on with college hoops right now, and trying to get a serviceable big. They want to try and find somebody, not a superstar, but somebody like an Evan Bronze kind of player. To be a backup big man who can, give him some minutes, give him some size, give him a little bit of a presence in the Big Ten, and because Fulgaris is a 4, he's a stretch 4, he's not a post,
And I can't imagine that they think that that Trevin Urich is ready to go as a true freshman.
Yeah, and it's unrealistic to think that he's going to come in and play right away. Play significant minutes. Now, he might have to, but
I have a beef with. We all know. I think the number right now is 20.5 million. Is that right?
yeah, 20.5 million for the house thing. And Kirk was kind of talking about that. We should dovetail into that because he was kind of jumped in on that stuff today a little.
Here's my problem I have with that 20.5 ruling. What about a school like, I don't know, maybe Creighton that doesn't play football? Is that fair? That they have more available money to buy basketball players? That's not fair.
Well, no, and that's all those Big East schools too, St. John's and Villanova, and schools like that are just Providence, Georgetown. They don't have to field it, but they're not going to put that much money into their program that thing at all.
You can argue that they don't have the same revenue.
I was going to say they don't have the TV revenue that the Big Ten and the SEC have. It's
essentially like a 20% cut from your TV, from your media rights revenue.
Now, I will say this. This is something I was actually talking to. I was talking to a parent today of an athlete that was there in Kinnick just briefly, and this individual brought up revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that is on the minds of a lot of parents and athletes right now is the whole house thing. But as it relates to comparing across the conference, like I guess isn't the top percentage, like you can allocate up to 80, is it 85% to football, but no more? Is that the right number, Tom?
I think everybody is kind of just doing the same thing. I don't think that it was a mandate, but I think it was kind of like a suggested number.
Okay, because what I was told today, and this again could be off, was that there is a limit to how much you can percentage-wise give to football, and that Ohio State, for instance, is giving the max 85%, whereas Iowa's not. But my response to that is, well, Ohio State's got the same to work with. Iowa's got the same to work with. That puts Ohio State actually at a disadvantage for men's basketball recruiting and women's basketball recruiting from the perspective of revenue sharing. But this is also fresh territory. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I don't know that that's true. And right now, there's no settlement. That's the problem. And Kirk is frustrated with it. And I get his frustration with that, especially with the roster size thing that the judge is pushing back on, because Iowa tried to do the honorable thing back in January and just I guess it was December, before the bowl game or after the semester was done, and just kind of let these guys know, hey, you're probably not going to be part of our 105. So you might want to, start kicking the tires on some other things if you want. You're welcome to stay and work out with us in the spring and do all that. But, we're going to you're probably not going to be on our 105. You could stay and try and earn a spot. Maybe something happens, but, we're trying to do right by you. And,
no problem, John.
And then this judge comes in and says, hey, well, this should have been like a gradual thing, which is exactly what Kirk said a year ago, that, hey, this thing should have been like, you go from 125 to 120 to 115 to 110 to 105.
It's basically, you're basically rewarding the people and the coaches and
like
the
Nebraska.
You're rewarding the ones that don't give a rip.
Right.
They don't give a rip about whether they're following the rules, whether they're helping the student athlete. You just don't care, and they're the ones that can continue to ride the wave.
Yeah,
it's wild to me that this is going on, and then there's I'm still amused. One of the things that I thought was interesting, Kirk said, and I was going to ask him about it, but I didn't want to poke that bear a little bit more, because he mentioned something about not doing two deeps anymore. And it was, I think, in part because of parents, and I think it's because parents know, because kids know what cut their kids are getting and what cut other kids are getting, and parents talk and kids talk, and I think there's this dividing line of like, if you're a starter, you're getting this much. If you're second string on the two deeps, you're getting this much. At least that's why they're kind of doing it. It's not like a hard and fast thing, but kind of how they're dividing up some of that money for football is based on where you're at in the depth chart. And so I think he wants to do away with that because he doesn't want to have to deal with that craziness. And then you have guys coming in trying to renegotiate their deals after they've signed a deal. And they can just bounce right into the portal. It's not like, the NFL where if you've got a contract, you can hold out if you want, but you can't go play for another team. Right. These guys can just bounce into the portal and go play for another team, and nobody's going to stop them.
Tom, I do want to ask you about today to some extent, and I made the pledge at the beginning of this show that we're not, reading into position by position what we saw today and trying to draw these vast conclusions. But first of all, I want to do a bit of a roll call. I did a little bit of this earlier today, but you're always the guy that knows who's injured and what they've got and if they tore a nail that day and all that stuff. So
sometimes,
yeah. So let's run through a few, and if stop me if I'm wrong or you want to add something to any of these. So let's start with the top two on the roster: Jarrett Bowie, Xavier Wampa, both out today. They were there. Xavier was made available to the media. I saw Jarrett Bowie was tossing a football around after practice. But it sounds like none of these guys are being sidelined for serious injuries.
No, and I don't think Bowie's works at all this spring. And I don't know that X has really at all either. So I don't think they've done a whole bunch. X is playing free safety now, which I thought was interesting, and he's kind of comfortably in there. I think they've settled. I shouldn't say they've settled it, but right now it looks like Cohen Intringer's the cash, and then Lutmer's going to be the other safety with X. At least that's the way it looked like today.
Tom, I read somewhere that Xavier, I believe Phil said this, Xavier looks more comfortable at strong safety. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, he said he feels more comfortable at free safety, I think.
That's not what was printed, I'm sure, because I wrote it down the way I saw it.
Yeah, I know X said today, told me today.
Safety.
Yeah, X told me today that he feels more comfortable at free.
Well, okay. The impression I got is Phil thought he was more suited to play strong safety, primarily to give us more run support, to give us a guy that's a little better position to get in the box.
Yeah, he's bigger than Lutmer, that's for sure.
Jacob Gill was made available to the media, but he did not suit up. Tegan Davis also out with an injury.
Yep.
Bert Goucher out with an injury. James Rezar is in the portal, was out with an injury, but is still with the team looking for a home. He's trying to find a place to play quarterback.
Yeah.
Mark Gronowski. We know who that is. Yeah, he's out still, but he was throwing. Drew Campbell is out. Khalil Tate was shoulder. Okay. Khalil Tate was in pads, was working out. He's in the portal. Carson Cooney was out with an injury.
Yep.
Was Cale Kolarek out there? I did hear Kirk complimented him in the presser.
Yeah, he was out there. He had a tip interception and almost had another one.
Well, I didn't have him written down. Okay, and then let's see. Herkett was out.
Yep.
Jeremiah Pittman was out.
Yep.
Dunker, we know, out. Logan Jones out. Bo Stevens out. Brian Allen out.
Yep.
Wetzing is off the roster. Hoffman's off the roster. So, first of all, any intel on any of those guys injury-wise that besides just not serious?
I thought Kirk's description of the Dunker thing was interesting when he said it's an orthopedic injury, which sounds like something an old guy would have. Coach, you probably got one of those, right? Orthopedic injury? It's like something you and I would have, right? It's like one of those. It's like one of those commercials on Fox News in the middle of the day or something about something to help an old guy. It's just what's going on here. It sounds like a foot or something maybe, rather than a knee. When I think of orthopedic, I think of like a foot injury.
Well, no, that's not necessarily.
Orthopedic. I mean, my gosh, it could be a shoulder or a knee or
Yeah, he's not
or a foot. I
it's
mean,
not a it's not a podiatrist.
orthopods working on all those joints.
I was going to say,
it's true.
yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting way to describe it. To me, I took it more, Tom, and you've been doing this a lot longer. I took Kirk's comments to mean I don't want to say what it is, but it's
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He didn't want to say it's a knee or it's a foot or something. He said orthopedic.
okay, there's a few guys here that I didn't see on the field. You may tell me that they were out there and I just missed them. Cale Winter.
Did not see him out there today. They only had 10 offensive linemen that were dressed.
Yeah,
So
they were. So Will Nolan not there.
Will Nolan had a knee brace on. Cody Fox, I don't know that he's with the team right now.
Cody Fox, what's going on with Cody Fox?
He has been gone from the team. I think personal issue of some sort. So kind of figure out maybe if don't know what his future's like right now. I think it's a curious situation.
And then Cade Borid.
I believe he's going to be gone if he's not gone already.
What a sad story. I mean, I don't know the situation. What a sad story. He comes over from North Dakota.
Okay.
Had a really great start to his collegiate career with the Fighting Hawks. Gets the OWI in Des Moines.
Oh yeah.
And maybe there's others.
Same. And they were pretty high on him.
Yes. I thought he was going to come in here and be a starting center someday. I really did.
Sounds like it was self-inflicted, though.
So he's not. Are you saying he's not with the team, Tom?
I don't believe he's going to be with the team this fall. That's my guess, but we'll see. I could be totally wrong, but
and he was on the roster that they printed today.
I don't know.
I'm comparing it to the spring prospectus here. Yeah, he's not even on this roster.
Yeah, so he's gone.
He's not even on the roster. What a sad story. Michael Maslinski. I remember having a conversation with you. Hey, he's out there. He was out there today, Tom. It was good to see him.
He and Carson Shire, the two guys that have never been healthy in the spring, and they were both out there today, which is crazy to think about. And I was super happy for Carson because I know he's struggled and he's wanted to be out there, but I don't think he'd ever been healthy for a spring. And this year he was healthy. And awesome to see him out there.
Seth Anderson.
Seth Anderson's another one who's never been healthy. Although he gets kind of, I shouldn't say he gets prickly, but he doesn't like talking about it. It's almost like a jinx thing with him, I think.
Yeah. Jeff Bowie, but he's at UNI now.
He's at UNI. He was another one that was always hurt.
Yes. So
maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year when all the perpetually unhealthy are
guys,
healthy.
They step up and are productive guys. Okay, I think I wanted to ask you about Cody Fox. So best of wishes to whatever he's got moving on. Don, anything for Tom before we let him slide here?
Tom, I have one question for you. To me, it was obvious the way the reps were carried out at quarterback. I got the distinct impression Tim is not sure who's 2 and who's 3. Was it discussed at all about the two quarterbacks and how they compared today?
Not really. Kirk didn't really say much about that. I think Hank's probably number 2, and then Shaggy's probably the 3rd guy. That's my guess.
And you like Shaggy more?
Shaggy's developed a following. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Shaggy can throw the ball.
Yep.
And I just noticed, I didn't chart it, but I'm pretty sure he got more snaps than any QB.
Yes.
And so I found myself thinking, Tim's not sure. Otherwise, he wouldn't be giving Shaggy so many snaps. That's just how a quarterback coach might think.
Yeah, I think he's testing that out. You know what? The thing that jumped out to me more than anything else with this team is they've got some depth at wide receiver for the first time in ages. They've got, I think, probably if you throw like Bowie in that mix and guys like that. I think, KJ Parker today looked terrific.
Dayton Howard.
Dayton Howard, Vander Zee. There's like 8 guys that I counted that I would feel comfortable being out there catching a pass, running a route. And I can't remember the last time I felt that way about an Iowa team where you could have 8 guys that could go out there and competently play wide receiver.
And also in that regard, a few of those passes were off target a little bit, and you saw some really outstanding catches.
Yeah.
Some circus catches, if you will.
You know what I thought was interesting, Coach, and I'd be curious to get your view on this. Something that Tim Lester said the other day, and I'm wondering if you caught it as well as I did, but he talked about having to teach the receivers how to read routes or read coverages when they're running their routes, and that they didn't know that before. Did that surprise you when he talked about that?
No.
Well,
Okay.
let me share with you a conversation I had with a guy you've heard of by the name of Nick Saban.
Yes.
We're getting ready to play LSU, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk to Nick about before the game. So I remember distinctly what I said. I said, Nick, I'm going to take you back to 1985, Iowa versus Michigan State, and I want to congratulate you. You guys did the best job of disguising coverage of any team we'd ever seen. And Nick's response was, well, hell, it didn't do us any good. You still beat us. It was 35-31, you might recall. And I made the comment then, I said, well, truthfully, you guys were ahead of your time. The only problem with that is we were also ahead of our time. So you changed the coverage on the snap. Our guys read the coverage. Our guys route adjusted into the best route. So we were both ahead of our competition. And that offset the fact that they did a great job disguising coverage. And I give great credit to Coach Fry and great credit to Bill Snyder, because those are the guys that really taught us how to adjust routes.
So is that, I mean, based on what was said, I guess.
It kind of suggests we haven't been doing it.
So is
Yes.
that's not on scheme so much, that's on your wide receivers coach, correct?
Ultimately, that's who I'd blame. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was stunning when it came up and it just kind of floated by, and I was like, whoa, okay, that's going to hang with me for a little bit.
Well, some teams to this day do not adjust coverage. I'm sorry, do not adjust routes based on coverage. The teams that are at the forefront, typically they're trained well enough where they can adjust coverage on the fly and adjust to the coverage on the fly, I should say.
Hey,
Tom,
go ahead. Well, if we were wrapping up, I was going to plug something quick
Sure.
that I'm involved with. It's because it's somebody that Don knows. Chuck Long is involved with this. The Children's Therapy Center of the Quad Cities. The Chuck Long charity auction is going on, and we're running it for the bidding for all the cool prizes. Like Chuck's giving away, or not giving away, he's auctioning off his 1982 Rose Bowl ring. That's one of the things that's up for bid. There's an All-American watch. There's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of really cool things from the football club and a bunch of Iowa things. Some Caitlin Clark stuff, Lucy Olson, all this stuff is up for auction, and you can go to ctcqc.org. That's ctcqc.org, and you'll find the Chuck Long charity auction on there. Super easy. All you got to do is just go to the thing, and and you can start bidding for stuff. And it runs through May 3rd, and it's super easy to do on your computer, on your phone. And you can get caught up in the bidding stuff. Chuck's going to be there. Chuck and I are going to be hanging out next Saturday night. So it'll be fun to hang out with him. Hopefully be in a good mood. Hopefully he and Coach Stoops end up winning on Friday night. So Chuck's not grouchy on Saturday. They're playing down in St. Louis, and then Chuck's going to drive up to see.
What's Orange's record now? Do you know?
I think they're 2-2, but I don't know what they did this weekend. I haven't kept track this weekend yet, so I got to check Chuck and and find out what's going on. Yeah, I just wanted to throw a plug in for that because it's something I'm involved with, been involved for many years, and it's one of my favorite things of the year to be involved in, and help kid. The program helps kids in the Quad Cities. No kid gets unserved with that program, with physical therapy and occupational therapy, and just helps these families who can't afford it. And this auction helps pay for therapy for kids.
Sounds like a great cause.
It is.
Good stuff. Last thing before we go, has Sam Phillips worked much this spring?
Some. He has worked some, but yeah, I was disappointed not to see him out there today. I was really anxious to get a look at him and see what he looked like out there. Because I know what a lot of guys are doing, and it's almost like I keep thinking, how are they going to keep all these mouths fed? But that's a great problem to have, isn't it? To have all these guys that you need to feed. Plus, you got a couple of tight ends you like. I like Ortworth. We know what Addy Ostringa can do. We know DJ Voname.
Yeah,
kid walk on had a one-handed grab today. I mean, he's pretty good too.
And have heard good things about Michael Burt, and I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked then that Gavin went back to Mizzou. Hey, Tom, I'm curious. I published a video here a few days ago about Gavin Hoffman leaving. Is that a situation where, like, anymore, guys are getting tampered with left and right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is there any doubt that someone in the Hoffman family? I mean, there's such strong Mizzou connections with that family, right?
Yeah.
And Sophie Cunningham is plays for the Indiana Fever. She's a legend there in Columbia. But the guy hops in the portal and he's like doesn't take any other visits. Reportedly had interest from a bunch of SEC schools and all these places, and he just goes right to Missouri. Doesn't that scream tampering, or do we just not care anymore?
100%.
Do we just not care?
It's hard to prove because all they do is just contact agents, and the agents have probably been having conversations with Drinkwitz and his staff for months.
And I thought, and I don't know this, but I just putting the things together. They just played in December,
right?
And a lot of people thought Hoffman was going to Missouri out of high school, right, Tom?
Yeah.
And so, is there any is it a possibility that somebody had a conversation with somebody at that bowl game?
Sure.
I just think about these things. Not that he couldn't communicate through Sophie Cunningham or whoever else. I just thought it was interesting when a guy hops in the portal and they're almost immediately at another destination. I find it, and then he doesn't take any visits to any of these huge places.
Most of the time, here's the dirty little secret about the portal: is most of the time when a guy goes in there, he knows where he's going or one of the 3 or 4 schools that he's going to go to. They usually have things.
I wonder how that works, Tom.
It's all those agents. It's these agents. I mean, these agents are. I'll tell you the worst part of the portal right now. And there are some good agents out there. I'm not going to bash every one of them, but there are guys that are, normally like at a professional level, it's like you get like a 3% from your client, and these guys are getting like upwards of 20%.
Yeah.
And the only time you'd ever get a 20%, and talking to some guys who are pro athletes in different sports, the only time you get like 15 to 20% as an agent is if like you're getting them like a Gatorade deal or, a Nike thing or something, a tangible thing, State Farm, whatever, whatever it might be. I'm listing all of Caitlin's clients, but that's the normal way you would get a cut of 20%. You don't get 20% on contract stuff. That's the small change stuff. Because you go out and generally earn those endorsement deals for your clients. You don't earn the contract for your clients. The clients earn the contracts for themselves.
My response for all this time: welcome to the Wild Wild West.
It is. It's just.
And by the way, if I'll tell you what, if I'm an agent and I get my client who scored 6 points a game last year, 1 million, I want 20%.
Actually, I'd say at that point you deserve more than 20.
That's right. If I get my 6-point scorer from Santa Clara,
He might
a
even,
$1 million
he might
contract.
even be willing to give you half of it.
By the way, what do you think Chris Taggio got to go to Santa Clara, Tom? Care to toss out a number?
I don't have any idea. I don't think it was as much as you would think, and I'm not sure how much Sadu got to go out to Utah, but I know they're throwing a lot of money out there in Utah. BYU in particular is throwing around a lot of money.
I thought, with all honesty, joking aside, I thought Chris Taggio going to Santa Clara is a great spot for him.
Sure,
because that's a. I mean, I don't know if that program hasn't been a dominant West Coast, but West Coast Conference is a good league,
solid program. Good coach, Herb Sendick.
And he didn't do anything at Iowa in his 1 year here. And so I think it's a good destination for him, and I wish the best for Sadu. Sadu had some suitors at the
There's going to be a cottage industry this year of Iowa fans watching the production of all these guys that left and chronicling that every time, especially if there's any struggles with the men's team. And there'll be an Aaliyah Guyton watch for every game too, I'm sure.
What can I just ask? Why do people hate her? I don't get it. I do not understand.
I don't either. I mean, I get you might boo her when she comes in for playing for Illinois, but
like what? So I'm assuming they're going to do the same thing for John Nestor. I'm assuming they're going to do this. They should do it even more for Price Sanford, right?
Yeah.
Tom, you've been here 2 years and you go to your arch rival, notwithstanding Iowa State. It's a Big Ten rival. It's Nebraska and it's Fred Hoiberg. I don't know. That
was disappointing because of the fact that the Sanford name has been involved with Iowa basketball a long time.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I just mean between him and his brother, they've given Iowa a lot of good minutes. And I hate to think that there wasn't some loyalty that was developed that would override going to another school.
Yeah, and I saw the comment here from Gopher Insight. Curious to see how John Nestor will do up at.
I'm really curious about that one too.
Yeah, that's an interesting pairing. I think anybody that goes to play for Fleck, especially when you go from Kirk to Fleck, I just think it's
such a weird. There's not much difference than Kirk and PJ, and PJ's a nice enough guy. It's not my cup of tea.
No. Tom Kaker, HawkeyeReport.com on 3 Network. Tom had himself and his whole team there. He had 3 guys there. So any question that didn't get asked, we're going to blame you guys, Tom, because you had an army at that stadium today.
Guys. Well, Kyle came because he was going to cover baseball, and so he's like, "Well, I'll just come over for a while."
Yeah,
we don't all get together very often, so it's
good to see. Yeah, the 3 Musketeers back together. But Tom, appreciate you being here to provide some insight here this evening, and we'll get through the summer, and soon enough we'll be at another one of these in August.
Awesome. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate your time.
Take care, Tom.
All right. This has been fun, Don. I mean, we went over an hour and a half, actually. So, folks, be sure you subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You can donate to the show. Links in the description. Of course, support our sponsors. Iowa Floor Covering was part of the show this evening. And share the show out on social media. I'm with you from January 1st to December 31st, talking all the 3 major sports. And as I said the other day, don't forget that we're always looking to better the product. So there may be opportunities, whether it be Indiana Fever stuff, Iowa baseball postseason, we'll see. But keep it locked right here all off season and into the fall. Fall's going to creep up on us. It moves faster than it ever has.
And Corey, if I'm not mistaken, aren't there something like almost 11,000 subscribers now?
We just passed 11,000.
Yeah.
We just passed 11,000.
Well, congratulations on that.
Well, you've been a big part of that, and as have Gary Close and, of course, Kasheen Alexander for women's coverage. So, folks, again, thank you for being here. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy a beautiful spring day. Be safe on Monday. The storms are about to roll in, it sounds like, and could provide some problems. So be safe on Monday. Heed the sirens, heed the warnings, and listen to your local news station for the latest on weather. And we'll be back with you talking all things Hawkeye here this coming week. Have a great night.